Hello, everyone. I hope my connection is stable enough here at this park. Logistics making it sensible for me to be here instead of at home right now. Um, I'm in Bend, Oregon, for those of you who are not as familiar with me and how I do my life as some other people might be. This is, yeah, the kind of people call it Central Oregon. Technically, it's not the geographic center of the state. It's a little bit more west of center, but we are about 3 hours south of Portland, and it is a growing place here. I've been here since 2010. I spent 18 years of the first 18 years of my life. Um, about an hour. I'm going to get down here so you can maybe see my face a little bit better. About an hour and a half north of here. I grew up on a farm. My dad's family has been in Central Oregon for 130 years. And I moved back to Central Oregon to Bend here in 2010. So I've been here for 16 years and I've seen a lot of change. I mean, this place has changed a lot more than 16 years. In more than 16 years, it's changed a lot. But we've had a huge growth surge here that started during the pandemic. So it's always interesting to drive around your own town and see things that you didn't know were there. And that happened to me this morning. I just happened upon a new part of West Bend that I'd never seen before that's, new in the last couple years of development. Yeah, it's a beautiful day here. I'm trying to get some work done while my son's at a camp. And I think the thing that is present with me right now is I've been thinking a lot about what I learned from listening to Healing the Shame That Binds You, which, if you haven't seen about this already, it's I'm like, is this still true? And so every time I do a little cross check with myself to see, is this really true? And I do believe it is true, that it feels like the most impactful book I've ever taken in my life. Um, and I've been alive for 46 years. Not that I've been reading books for all of those years, but I read a lot of really powerful books, and this one feels indeed like the most important book I've ever absorbed information through. So I highly recommend, if you haven't listened or read it already, Healing the Shame That Binds You by John Bradshaw. And one of the things that has been floating through me over the last few days as a result of this book is how internalized shame, which could also be described as unhealthy shame, a type of shame that becomes fused with identity. So, to the point that we think that we are flawed as a human, that we are permanently um, somehow failing or damaged or unworthy. And versus healthy shame, which is an experience that's really, really, really important and essential to move through life as a human, which keeps us in check with our ego. I'll put it that way. It keeps us so that we don't think that we are above God, which is, I'm not religious at all, but to put that in a nutshell, that we are not so omnipotent that we can have everything that we want, that we can't actually have everything we want. And when we lose sense of humility in that way, um, there's an imbalance there. It's an unhealthy space to be feeling omnipotent. And shame, healthy shame, helps us be there. It helps remind us that we are creatures who make mistakes. We are um, not infallible. And that's important to be able to have a healthy, like, retrospect on our life and on our choices. On the flip side, um, it's healthy to know that we can make mistakes. So to find ourselves somewhere in this middle space where we are not above God, but we are also not less than to the point that we are purposeless and worthless. That there's this healthy balance um, of wholeness that is balanced by humility. This is healthy shame. Unhealthy shame is it's a divorce from that. It's a divorce from that relationship where our we don't have a relationship with our spiritual essence that knows that it is not God itself, but it is also prone to mistakes, and that mistakes are how we learn, and that mistakes are okay. Um, so a, a real like outcome of internalized or induced shame that comes through us, through our ancestors, through our caregivers. Um, it's internalized shame is really a product of what we learn from our caregivers and through messaging and attachment experiences in our childhood. And when there is a divorce from one's own spiritual relationship with self, the will becomes hijacked, and the will takes shape in either one or both of these places, which is I can have everything I want, and I am so supremely powerful that I will have everything I want. That's the one extreme. And then the other extreme says, I don't deserve anything, and I am unworthy and undeserving of everything. So those are the two extremes. And that's how internalized shame lives through the will, is that you either think that you can have everything that your ego decides you think you need for life to have meaning and fulfillment, or you give up and nothing matters. And there's healing through all of this. All of these things are healable. That's the beauty of every choice that we make to come into deep relationship with ourselves, is healing towards finding this optimal balance and homeostasis in our physiology, because these voices, these beliefs that are in our subconscious, and that's what's so interesting about internalized shame, is that the the beliefs and the protectiveness become fused with personality and identity so much so that we don't actually understand that these habits or patterns or addictive tendencies aren't ourselves, versus they are learned protective strategies and mechanisms that get established early on in life, and then they continue to get practiced so much to the point that we actually think that they're who we are. But all of this stuff can be unwound and unpacked, and I feel so grateful to be able to do this work on myself and also to support people in it for themselves. And I had a beautiful session with a client yesterday. I just like could start to cry. Whew. The meaningfulness of this is just so profound. We we did an NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming, and John Bradshaw, in chapter 2 of Healing the Shame That Binds You, he it the middle chapter of this book is all of these practices and methods to unwind this internalized shame. Granted, these things are things that don't change us overnight. These things, especially if we're who knows where we are in our 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, wherever we are in our life, this is information that is entrenched in a really deep way. So it's a commitment to choose to unwind this information. And And there's always hope. Always, always, always hope. And that's a part of that shame voice can feel like this is never going to change. And in fact, it can. Um, so I was supporting a woman yesterday in a session and we did an NLP practice. Oh, true. And when I'm in session with people, I let myself feel because it feels important to be human. And I also maintain a very, like, professional space and holding of myself so that it doesn't become about me, because I am there to serve my client. No matter what container it is, that's my purpose. That's my role. My role is to serve my client, and so if it becomes too emotional for me and then I become absorbed in my own emotion, that's not helping them. But it is helpful and feels human and beautiful to be able to empathize, which means I can feel what they're feeling. That's what empathy is. I can feel what they're feeling. I can be with them in their experience. And there was that yesterday. And it's interesting how I'm thinking about it now, how it's taking me back to that feeling experience of being with her and this NLP practice that we did, which was about 10, 15 minutes. It wasn't long, and it was so, so powerful, bringing up a memory. I'm not gonna walk us through it right now, but, this is some to my sessions because I'm finding that somehow, at some level, many, if not most slash all, but many of we humans have some version of internalized shame. So I wanna say that to normalize it. You don't have to be in some life experience of massively chronic neglect or acute trauma. Um, there can be very subtle versions of childhood experience that can cause internalized shame. So I think it's really important that we normalize these things so that we don't feel alone. And to also like celebrate the beauty and the value of getting to know the self. It's the most important relationship any of us have. And we live our lives in this, so we think we know ourselves, but there's a whole different relationship that develops when we get to know ourselves in a way that comes with deep consciousness and intentionality to understand our subconscious and how our subconscious has been driving our behavior. So, getting to know ourselves doesn't just happen through happenstance. It happens because we choose to go into a relationship with a professional, typically, or a group container, or both, or whatever it is, where we're truly desiring to become totally vulnerable to ourselves so that we can get to know these deeper places of ourselves. And without that, we're staying up here on this surface level of protection. So it's a it is a there's a discerning characteristic towards deep authentic self relationship that is chosen. Um I think where I was going with that was I was saying that the NLP feels like a powerful method, and I have a lot of body mind connected things that I bring into my containers, but I'm really um, captivated by this NLP practice and the simplicity of it and the powerfulness of it. Because ultimately, these things, I got to change my shoulder position. uh, these things have to move through our autonomic nervous system in order to shift and change. We can't our body doesn't metabolize um, a new pattern through just mindset and awareness. A mindset can help open us, but it has to actually be digested and metabolized through the autonomic nervous system, through the body, in order for it to change, like energetically, physiologically change. It has to move through the autonomic nervous system. Um, so we can do this through emotional expression. We can do this through, and this is all spontaneous. This isn't like, I'm going to do this thing and make it happen. This is like an integrative thing that happens through spontaneity and like the animal body. And I got to witness that yesterday in this session with my client, and how beautiful it was to see her be so raw and vulnerable with herself, with my presence witnessing her. And so I'm going to end with this theme and and inviting us all to get curious about where we might have internalized pieces of shame living inside of us that have generated an inauthentic identity to protect ourselves. And I say that with total grace and compassion for each one of us. All of this stuff is like, it's okay. Like we don't need to feel more shame about the shame that we feel, and that is part of the saying yes to it. It's like the pain of like the same client being able to scream and feel connected to her rage. It's like, ooh, there's this admittance and acknowledgement that that shame has been there, that that pain has been there, and that feels so, so uncomfortable and so vulnerable and so scary, and it makes sense, and it is the only way that it changes. So to normalize it, I think helps us, have the courage to say yes to exploring it and to being vulnerable to ourselves, and to having this humility to go in. And then once we start to do that more and more, it starts to become like the most fascinating thing to say yes to, because our body starts to feel different. We start to feel free and better, and it's the embodied way to freedom. It's the only way, is to go into the pain, to go into all of those resistant pieces, to go into all of those protector shields and armors and all of the things that are guarding the deeper pained pieces. So we've all got them. It's all okay. Um, we're all supposed to just be here free, like these trees and these birds and all of these other natural living organisms that, like we humans, we are designed to thrive. And our body has all of the magic, all of the intelligence inside of it to thrive. And we have to choose to employ the tools and the practices and the methods in order to get there. It is a choice. And I celebrate every one of our micro choices along the path, because it is really an accumulation of micro choices. It's not like, oh, I'm going to do this thing and I'm going to be different tomorrow. It's micro choices in accumulation over time. That's where we feel different. In a year, in 2 years, in 3 years, we look back. Wow, I feel different inside myself. We got this. Love you.